introduced, it was a requirement to have low ozone depletion level, with not really paying no focus at all on the GWP, which is the global warming potential. Then, as we moved into R410, we had to remove all ODP, which is again ozone depletion level potential, and again not really focusing on the GWP of that refrigerant. Now, as we get into the new refrigerant, we need to now keep the ozone depletion potential at 0, but now we're trying to bring down that global warming potential. So now we're bringing it down to a level of 700, which I'll show you on the next slide, and kind of how that works with where our R454B kind of sits in that. But so that's kind of the history of these regulations. You can see there's a dot next to 2025. We don't know. This isn't going to be the last regulation change that's going to come out around refrigerants. We don't know what that next dot is going to be, what that requirement is going to look like. But we are definitely at the factory, Carrier Bryant. We are certainly focused on that and paying close attention to what the next phase down might look like. But in the world we live in today, the two refrigerants that will meet this is R32 and R454B. Dan, if you want to go to the next slide. So looking at the GWP requirements, you can see R410A is above 2,000. So it's 2,088 as far as our GWP potential on R410. We had to bring that down to 700. One of the main reasons we went with R454B is because it brings us further below that line of 700, where R32 is it's below the line, but it's at 675. So that's one of the reasons why we went the route of R454B. Also, R454B, from a technician standpoint, it's much more of an ease of transition going from R410A to R454B, because it has a lot of the same pressures, a lot of the same operating temperatures as our R410A. So we chose those for those two reasons only. But yeah, as you see, we're potentially, what does that next phase down look like? We don't know, but we have plans that we have hopes that this is going to carry us through the next potential phase down as we go into past this refrigerant change. Go ahead, Dan. Next slide. Thank you, sir. So what is R410? What is R454B composition? So essentially, it's a blend between two refrigerants. We're blending R32 and R1234YF, which gives us R454B. We have dubbed it Puron Advance. So you'll hear the terms Puron Advance in a lot of marketing material and literature that Bryant puts out. We were the pioneers with Puron when that was first introduced and trademarked that. So we went with Puron Advance. It is R454B. It's the same refrigerant, just our trademark is on the Puron Advance piece of it. So one of the big misnomers out there, and we want to make sure everyone understands, there is zero propane in this refrigerant. It is not a propane-based refrigerant. However, it is still classified as mildly flammable. Now, with that, there is, again, a low flammability to this refrigerant, and I'll get into what that kind of means in a second. But there had to be a new classification of refrigerants because we went from no flammability to mildly flammable. That's why we had A2L. You hear the term A2L. That's the new classification of refrigerant that the industry had to kind of put their R32 and R454B in that A2L category. But it, kind of touching on the mildly flammable piece, it is a mildly flammable refrigerant, but it requires a high concentrate of the refrigerant and a direct ignition source. So imagine trying to ignite a piece of charcoal with a match without any lighter fluid. That is a very difficult thing to do. It can ignite, right? But it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of matches to get that done. And as far as the refrigerant flame is concerned, it burns, once ignited. So again, think about it has to have a direct ignition source, as well as a lot of concentrate in that refrigerant. Once it actually is ignited, it travels burns at a very low flame speed of half about half mile per hour. So really think about it. You could easily outwalk a flame if it ever did catch or ignite. So again, from the mildly flammable, we had to classify it that way because there is some flammability to it, and again, the industry had to go that route. So that's why the new classification is A2L. So next slide, Dan.
Yeah, before we go to the next slide, I just want to reiterate the no propane, because as
Yeah.
of yesterday, I was at my kids' swim meet, and there was an air conditioning contractor there, and I asked him if he was going to join us today, and he goes, "Oh, you're going to go over the propane refrigerant." So no propane. There's no propane. If you hear from an engineer or an architect, wherever you're working with, we're going to have frequently asked questions on homans.com. We're going to have a lot of data to get the misnomer out there, like no propane. As much as we say it, just yesterday the guy asked me, so I just want to bring that up one more time.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dan. It's definitely a message we want to make sure everybody understands. All right, now we're going to get into, again, some of the ruling and some of the changes that really focus next couple of slides on, sell-through dates, how long you can install for the R410A and what it means from the service side of things. So Dan, if you want to go on the next slide. So looking at the final EPA ruling, you see the GWP level. Obviously, everybody has to be at that 700 mark on global warming potential. Now, as far as the date of when the new systems have to be installed, so if you look at RNC, that's new construction. The next line below that is add-on replacement, new systems date. So what we're saying here is January 1, 2025. We, as a manufacturer, will no longer be able to manufacture any new R410A equipment. All new equipment coming out of the factories will be R454B, Piron Advanced from us. So that means anything that we manufacture post January 1 is all the new refrigerant. That includes your outdoor units as well as your fan coils. I'll get into a second on the evaporator coils, but we'll still be able to manufacture 410A evaporator coils because of the service component piece of it, but I'll talk about that in a second. But so that's on our package units. That is also on our splits, as well as ductless VRF. If VRF on the larger side, so anything above 65,000 K BTU, they still will be able to manufacture that equipment, but it has a January 1st, 2026 installation date. So they're based off of date of installation, which is different than everything else here. So just want to make sure you guys all know we have a date of manufacture import. Everything has to be into us from 410A before that, where we can continue to sell that product. So what that means, though, is on the sell-through, I'm going to skip down to sell-through real quick. R410A inventory, anything produced has a manufacture date of December 31st, 2024 and before, can be installed throughout all of next year on the splits. So that means we can do evaporator coils, we can do indoor equipment, we can do outdoor equipment. You have 1 year sell-through on 410A equipment as long as it's manufactured this year in 2024. On the package side, there's a 3-year sell-through. Still same requirements as far as has to be manufactured in this year, but it has a 3-year sell-through. And on the service side of the splits, I didn't mention it's indefinite service, and on the ductless, it's also indefinite service, which means we're going to make the components. We're still going to have the replacement parts available where you can make the service happen. So getting into the splits and the service restrictions. So there's two things I'm looking at the splits column here real quick. So we will have parts again available for parts. If there's some components around the law where if there's an outdoor unit with no match and it meets the requirements, as long as that meets a specific requirement, that can still be installed and be considered a component of a system. I'll get into that in the next slide. And then also for your service coil. So if you think about evaporator coil that doesn't have a fan integrated into it, if that is needed to be used as a service piece, you can still install that. It's going to have a service only sticker on it, but you can install that, say an evaporator coil goes down, you need to replace that. We will still have those evaporator coils for you to replace that in a 410A system where you do not have to change the entire system. And that will be continued on through as we get even past 2025, 2026. Dan, if you want to go to the next slide and get into some of the highlights. So again, as I said, this does take effect on January 1st, 2025 for any newly manufactured equipment has to meet the new refrigerant requirements, which is again low GWP, A2L refrigerant. So that hits all of our product categories except obviously the VRF side of it. Last date of manufacture, we have until December 31st, 2024 to manufacture or import any of our product with 410A. Once those are landed in the US and in our barns and in Homans barns or even in your stock and available inventory, you can sell that all throughout of next year. So you have a sell-through date of 1 year. And then on the light commercial, that's going to be a 3-year sell-through, which I've talked about already. Now, Dan, go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So when you look at some of the service provisions, talking about for service only. So the EPA rule allows for components of 410A systems to be manufactured again beyond 2024 when that component is being replaced for service only. And as I get into service only, there's a couple different caveats to it. So if an outdoor unit is considered for service only, it has to meet a new testing procedure. So that's the outdoor unit with no match, OUWNM. You'll see that on AHRI as a match that or a drop down that they'll have to meet, which is a more rigorous testing procedure than the M and M1 coil only test. So if an outdoor unit 410A goes down and you want to replace it as a service component, this unit specifically has to meet that OUWNM testing procedure. At this time, Carrier Bryant, we do not anticipate having a unit that's going to meet that testing procedure. It will require us to do some heavy engineering and things like that to make that happen. Not saying it's completely out of the cards, but right now we don't have any plans to do that. So the next piece here, looking at your furnace coils. So DOE language allows for furnace coils, again, does not have an integrated blower to be used as service coils going into our into 2025 and beyond. So what that means is we're going to still manufacture 410A coils, evaporator coils that can be used and installed and anything after December 1st, 2024, anything manufactured from us will have a for service only sticker on that. But just keep in mind that you can still get those coils from us and from Homans. Now, one of the pieces highlighted in red here, the DOE before, as of recently, was considering an indoor unit as part of a component. So under the impression of, if a fan coil is considered part of that system, it's considered a component which can be replaced and changed out into 2025 as a service only piece. Well, that language has since changed. The DOE now is considering anything with an integrated blower, so that would be your fan coils or air handlers, as a service coil, and it will not be considered part of a service only. So it's part of a system, in which how it impacts us. We will not be able to manufacture any 410A coils beyond 2024. So that includes your ducted and ductless piece of it. So we are going to have to, we've got, we'll still manufacture the parts and components, but similar to an outdoor unit or fan coil needs to be replaced, and there's no R410A fan coil to replace it available, that's going to require a system change out to the new refrigerant, R454B. Again, that was some new language that was just changed as of recently. But just to keep in mind, I put that at the bottom. Anything the pre-2025 split systems can be installed until December 31st, 2025, as long as they were manufactured in 2024. You want to go to the next slide, or maybe that's a good time to take some questions before we get into the product updates. I don't know if there's any questions that come through, Rick.
That's a great.
We are good at this point, Ryan.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Then let's get to the next slide, Dan. So changing gears a little bit, we're just going to talk, quickly about what kind of product updates we're going to be putting on our equipment. So go to the next slide, Dan. So we are going to be adding dissipation boards and sensors in all of our indoor equipment. That's going to be your fan coils as well as your evaporator coils. So the fan coils will have this integrated, connected in. So we'll have the sensor, the leak sensor, as well as the dissipation board installed into the actual fan coil itself. With an evaporator coil, it's going to ship with the sensor and the board, which the board will essentially be able to be wired into any existing gas furnace that's there. So if it's and it doesn't have to be a Bryant gas furnace. If it's any other OEM, it's a universal board that will be able to be wired into any gas furnace. So there's no worry if the gas furnace doesn't need to be changed, you can essentially wire this in and still have an active dissipation system component that meets the requirements going forward. So it will have both components shipped with the evaporator coil, and again, everything integrated into the fan coils themselves.
Excuse me,
Next
Ryan.
slide.
We did have one question that popped up, my friend.
Okay.
Someone is asking, they are a bit unclear on the OUWNM testing procedure and how it's more rigorous, and I guess just how it pertains to everything overall. Can you give an example of it? What it would be?
I can't give an example. I don't know the exact changes on. I know it's a completely separate testing procedure that the AHRI is requiring for that outdoor unit. It's a new testing procedure, so I don't know all the ins and outs of it. We can get more details for you for sure. If we can get whoever asked that question, we can follow up with them. But just from what I know is it is a different testing procedure. It's going to be more rigorous than the standards that we have today. Essentially, what it has to do is basically we're saying this outdoor unit, no matter what match is going to be on the indoor, we don't care. We can't tell what it's going to be matched up with. Whether it's a variable speed, whether it's a two-stage, all that it kind of impacts efficiency and ratings. This system was saying we have to meet the minimum testing with the minimum requirements without knowing what's actually on the indoor equipment, which again, not knowing that, we have to design a unit that's going to be much bigger as far as, from our perspective, we have to make a
Yeah,
much
be the
larger.
size of a shed or something, right?
Yeah, so because we don't know what the indoor equipment is, then that's the
Right.
rating, the testing procedure that it has to hit. I think in our entire lineup we have one model that actually hits that, but we essentially will require us to have a new model. Not saying it's out of the question, but at this time we just don't have the plans to do so. But I will try to grab some specifics on that testing procedure and get it out.
Now, would this apply to warranty items, evaporator coil leaks, etc.? What you talked about as far as changing out a service call for an evaporator coil, etc.
Yeah, we'll still have parts on warranty. Yeah, for we'll still manufacture the components that are going in the 410A, as well as 454B. If a system goes out, our RC team is focused on that and making sure they're beefing up supply and having enough inventory for that. But yes, that's the plan. If there's a service call, you have indefinite service on these split systems. Yep.
And are these new coils? I pretty much can answer this as well, obviously, but I'm going to leave it to you. Are these units going to be larger in size? For change outs, that kind of thing.
No.
Okay.
No. Yep.
And the pricing on the coils with the sensors and additional stuff that's in them, are the pricing going to go up? I'm sure they will, but we don't really know how much at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's likely going to be an increase. I haven't seen pricing, but you got to think we're adding components into this system, so it's likely going to impact price. I don't have details on that though. That'll all be out soon because when Dan gets into talking about the phase in phase out of when you guys are expecting to have 454B, pricing will be out all before that.
Okay. And just one more question with regard to warranty. So customers will still be able to get an R410A coil under warranty if need be.
Correct. That is correct.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right.
Good.
That is it for now. Thank you,
Cool.
Ryan.
Good questions. No problem. No problem. Dan, if you want to hit the next slide, go into a little bit about the dissipation system and how it works. So just kind of showing, this is a sensor. The sensor is again mounted by the coil. We're sensing a leak. It's not off pressure. We're actually sensing. It's a sensor that's gonna pick up the scent of refrigerant. We're gonna sense it that way, and ours is triggered through low flammability limit. So it's called LFL. So if we sense an LFL of less than 20% of the system, so in the air we sense 20% of the refrigerant there. Our system is designed to actually, so once that dissipation board, that sensor triggers to the dissipation board, what we're doing is signaling to the board to shut off the outdoor unit. So shut down the compressor on the outdoor unit. Once that dissipation level reaches below 20%, we will then kick the system back on. And all we're doing as we're shutting down the outdoor unit, we're continuing to run the blower on the indoor equipment, whether that be the gas furnace or whether that be the fan coil. And all we're doing is dissipating the refrigerant out into the air. And again, the question is, like, is that safe for the homeowner if the refrigerant is dissipated out? The answer is yes, because again, the low flammability and the high concentration that's required to ignite, the mixing that refrigerant with the air around is completely safe. So again, there's no worry that we're dissipating this out, but what we're doing is just clearing that dissipation. So we don't want that high concentrate of refrigerant in that setup, in that system, in that compartment, I should say. So as we dissipate, as we send that out, and as that LFL goes below 20%, we'll kick the system back on. That does not fix any leak. If there's a leak in the system, obviously there's a service that needs to be had on that. So that's, if you have this installed with our Evolution equipment that's communicating, even on some of the IntelliSense where it's going to trigger and tell installing contractor, this is, we noticed a leak, that will still trigger a service call that will happen. But that's just how the dissipation system works. So I want to make sure you guys are kind of comfortable with how that works. And again, this is going to be installed in all of our indoor equipment. Again, the gas furnace, the evaporator coil will have a board that will wire in directly to any gas furnace to trigger this event as it comes up. Next slide, Dan. Thank you. Yep. So just showing some of the changes. Again, we talked about the dissipation board. We talked about the refrigerant sensor. We do have mechanical TXVs now. So that's one of the TXV changes we are making. So we're going to have mechanical TXV. We've expanded our stub outs on our outdoor units, for mechanical fittings across all tiers. You'll see red markings on our outdoor units. That's going to indicate that this is a R454B service port. And some of our expansion devices and in the outdoor unit, we went to some EXVs and also mechanical fittings there. You'll see the model numbers we did change. So we're going to be, this is looking at a 215 SAN. That's going to be changed to a 235. You'll get a whole model number breakdown. Dan actually has a couple slides on what the models from previous from R410A into R454B. But just wanted to highlight some of the changes on the design. Dan, if you want to get the next slide.
Hey, Ryan, really quick. I think this pertains to the previous slide. So person asked, so it will just turn the furnace off. I think it's going to leave the blower on. Can you just describe that a little bit on the previous slide?
What's the question?
So it will just turn the furnace off. I'm not entirely sure what that pertains to. I'm just trying to put context around that. But I assume...
so it'll keep the blower in operation.
Yep.
So if there's heat or anything like that, it will kill the system until that dissipation is below 20%. Once that's below 20%, we'll go back into normal operation. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does. And if not, we can have the person follow up with another question. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay. Yep, you got it.
One more thing on this slide, Rye, which I love, and you know how I feel, and we don't talk about this enough, is the equipment's going to have stubs. So you're going to be able to use your press fittings on our Bryant equipment going into all the model updates. And I just love that feature because the brazing is kind of like, we know it's an art, not everyone has it. So I guess that's the nicest way to say it. So I love how Bryant has switched with the new equipment to the stubs. I just want to highlight that. It's not on here.
Perfect. Yeah, so just real quick on the ductless side of it, with it's going through the same transition as well. We will have a whole new 454B lineup. We're going to have the A2L dissipation sensor and the board on the indoor equipment. So that's going to be wired in. We'll sense a leak. It'll do this. It'll run the same exact way. Cut the outdoor unit, run the fan, clear the dissipation, and then go back into normal operation mode. We'll have some updates on like what the phase in, phase out. But Dan, if you go to the next slide, I think we show the leak sensor and everything on the outdoor units. And there we go. Thank you. So again, just essentially we're going to have the same leak sensor automatically wired into the board. There's no separate wiring harness or anything like that, but the dissipation dissipation activity would automatically tell the system cut the outdoor unit, and now we'll go and do dissipation mode and clear that refrigerant from that space and then kick back into normal mode. And then just on the last slide I have, there is going to be some product labeling changes. So you'll see any new A2L equipment, we will be labeling this with, you'll see that logo, essentially telling that this system is a A2L system coming out. There's going to have service. There's going to be a lot of stickers on the unit themselves to actually show you that this is A2L. We do have a lot of training, which Dan will get into the last slide, I think today, that talks about, transportation handling, what to do, what you can't do. We got a ton of information out there. I definitely encourage anybody who hasn't taken those classes to take them. It's a great resource to get yourself familiarized with some of the changes as far as, even transportation and storage. We have those training classes that are available. And also there's QR codes that we're going to put on the systems themselves that, can bring you to where you can find more information on Puron Advanced from the field just by snapping a picture of the phone.
Okay, Ryan, we do have a few more questions coming in. So
Okay.
we have, as far as leak sensing in the equipment goes, obviously manufacturers, need to do that. You've talked about that today. But is there any discussion about detecting leaks outside of that in any way? Is that coming into code at all? As far as like, at a line set or something somewhere else from the system? Has that been discussed at all that you know of?
Not that I know of. Our equipment has to have this built in because again, it's part of the system requirements that we have to now meet. Any A2L system has to have these safety protocols and everything that are built in. Specifically around testing on if there's a line set leak or things like that. That's outside of our world as far as the manufacturer. So we don't have the ability to kind of tie that in. So yeah, I don't know of any codes that are tied around that. But as far as what we have, our requirements are around just adding those sensors and dissipation boards in our equipment.
Next question. Will the furnace operate during heat mode if a leak is sensed? I think you answered that a little bit, but maybe a little bit of reinforcement on that.
It will not. The system if it's in gas furnace is firing off, the system will actually shut off until that dissipation is cleared. Electric heat, same thing. If there's electric heat operating, it will also kill the electric heat until that dissipation is cleared. That event is cleared, then they'll turn it back on.
Next question. Can you use any press fitting brand to put onto the units like RLS or different brands? And the answer is yes. So we'll make that easy. Do you need separate gauges for 454 as far as mixing oils? Is that an issue?
Peluso will hit that when we get into tools.
Yep. That is addressed a little bit later, so we'll answer that at that time when Mr. Peluso talks. But if that question is not answered, please let us know. Also, the president of our company, Rich Iandoli, did some research. He put it out there. But as of today, I'm just going to read it just to make sure it's highlighted. As of today, there is no manufacturers that have equipment that will meet the new rigid standard on the OUWNM that we discussed earlier. This standard was the same one that was used during the sunset of the dry R22 units as well. So just wanted everybody to know that. Thank you, Rich. And the final question that we have here at the moment, leak sensors are on indoor equipment only, not the outdoor?
Correct. Yeah, the reason is if there's a leak on the outdoor unit, there's enough air outside to dissipate that. There's no need to because again, the reason we need to have that dissipation is if there's enough refrigerant that builds in, we don't want the high concentrate. That's it. We need to disperse the refrigerant that leak out. So for an outdoor unit, you obviously don't have that as a concern.
Can we still braze, or will it be press fittings only?
Yes, you can definitely still brace.
Very good. That is the last question for now. So we'll move on. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay. And if the gauges piece doesn't get answered, we'll answer that for him.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to take
All
this.
right, guys.
Keep the questions coming, please. This is totally for you guys, so we'll answer as many questions as as clear as possible. I know this word perspective is probably annoying to everybody that's reading this, but I wanted to say it because I worked at the counter. I went through the 410A change. We all heard it. The stuff's going to explode. Coils aren't going to be able to handle it. Whoever lived through the 410A change already know everything that's coming with another change. So again, that's why we're doing this Zoom, and we're going to continue giving facts and literature, and I'm going to show you where to find stuff to address all the questions going into this R454 change. Like it says, we're expecting the exact same smooth transition to this new refrigerant. But with this refrigerant change, we have more training that has ever been around for us. We don't even have shit. I could be talking out of turn, but we might not even have the internet when R410A changed over. We have all those options now. But let's get into what the Homans plan is on the changeover. I'm not going to dive into the model numbers yet, but and this slideshow is going to live on Homans.com, the Bryant resource, and I'm going to show you how to get there after we go over what our PIPO, it's phase in, phase out of our Bryant equipment at Homans Associates. So you see the model numbers. I'm not going to go over every model number. These are our plans. So our slower moving product, where our current purchase plan is till the end of this year. The A and B models, the 127 two-stage, the 115 are A and B models. We're going to have enough stock to get us to the next season, and we should move into the season with them. But that's our plan as of today. I'm sure it's perfect, so you have nothing to worry about. But that is our current plan on the air conditioning, with the Puron Advance arriving February, March timeframe, getting ready for the selling season. Here's our heat pump. Exact same story. Our AB models, we're going to have enough stock to get us all the way in to the beginning of next 2025 selling season. We're going to be phasing out the 288s towards the end of the year, the 5-stage heat pumps. And same on the heat pumps. We're bringing them in February. We're hoping that's what we're going with, is February, well before the selling season, because of the rebates. That's especially around the mass saves and all the efficiency rebates out there. And here is our air handlers. Very similar story. We're going to have stock. We have a lot of Bryant equipment on order to get us to these March timeframes, because we got to have them in our barn to be able to sell them into March. So same exact thing with the Puron Advance arriving in March of 2025. We're going to go over loads of training on these model numbers. That's why I'm not covering these Puron Advanced model numbers. We don't need to right now. They're not available, so we don't need to go over them. We don't need to start memorizing them. We don't need to add them to our selling software. Talking about selling software, our House Call Pro, our On-Call Layer will be updated, just like we update currently with the model number changes, the few changes that have happened this year. We're going to continue staying on top of that next year, because I personally love that selling tool, since it integrates into everything through Homans Associates. And here's our rooftops. We have a lot of rooftops. We actually looked as of this morning, we have 500 rooftops on the ground at Homans Associates. We're going to have a promo coming out next week, similar to the last promo we've done the last two-ish months. And we are planning to have enough stock again to get us into 2025 and into at least the first quarter, getting into the second quarter for rooftops with R410A refrigerant in them. And here's all the training resources. Again, this is going to live on homans.com. I'm going to show you where it lives. But the resources that the factory has given us it's awesome. I'm an ex-military guy. I love training. And the training that they have produced and continuing to get in front of us it's awesome. I do encourage everyone, if they don't have HVAC partners access, to email your branch manager, your TM. We'll set you up. We'll send you a temporary password. We'll get you going. And how to get to My Learning Center is HVAC Partners. You're going to click on Learning, My Learning Center. It gets you right here. You just type in A2L. All of these trainings I've gone through are wonderful. They also live on homans.com. I'm going to show you where they live. And if you're a BFAD, they also qualify for your the hours that are needed. And also in My Learning Center, there's the videos. This is great. The reality check. This is kind of what we're going over today. But these videos are wonderful to go over and to really train ourselves and keep on reminding ourselves. I'm going to show you exactly where this stuff's going to live. Here's all of our frequently asked questions. This is, I think it's like 4 pages of questions. But I'm going to show you how to get there on homans.com. And if you haven't visited homans.com Bryant resources, please do. So when I do talk to people and I ask them, when they ask me about a rebate in a certain state, and I tell them about this website, they tell me how awesome it is. I agree. It's just, we got to get that communication out. So this training is going to live right here, just like these other trainings we have done in the past. So you can rewatch it, have your service guys watch it, your sales guys watch it to help them be able to answer the questions to the homeowners. And here is 3 out of the 4 trainings that is offered through My Learning Center. Just download them. My Learning Center is way better because there's a voice that goes with the PDF, but those are available all the time. And here's the rebate source. So you can literally put in your state, check out the rebates. It's broken right now, so no reason to put a question in the Q&A right now. We know it. We're addressing it. It's going to be just as good as it was 1 month ago. Great resource. And right here in this section is going to live the frequently asked questions. And every time I get something of value on the R454, it's going to live in this area. So check out Bryant Resources when you can. And if anyone wants a tutorial or to go over what I think is valuable, and this site is literally, because I worked the counter for so many years and I've heard so many questions, I wanted one source for all the contractors and everyone and the counter people and everyone that needs answers in one place, instead of going to say, go to HVAC Partners, go to this website, go to this website. We have one website. I'm trying to make it easy. Again, ex-military, KISS, that's what I'm trying to do. And if anything, I always say this at my presentations, if anything you want me to add to this, I'm going to be very selfish and add to it and then let everybody know that we added to it. So I do appreciate any kind of feedback on what you would love to see more easily. Lose my train of thought, but more easily accessible for everybody. And we have any questions, Rick?
There are a couple of questions. We're going to go back to you, Ryan. So if you're ready.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So
Go ahead.
Is the A2L dissipation sensor pre-installed in the coils, or is it done in the field?
The A2L sensor is installed in the coil, but the board would need to be installed in the field.
Okay. And then someone else said, they may have missed it, but does this new R454 refrigerant have higher pressure than 410? You know, kind of like 410 did when compared to 22.
Yeah, very similar operating temperatures and pressures than 410A. It's almost like a drop-in as far as the pressures and everything are concerned. Very
Excellent.
simple in operation. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Dan, back to you, my friend.
Great. Thank you, guys. Mr. Peluso, you're up to cover our A2L R454 tools.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Thank you for everyone joining this morning. I appreciate a few minutes here. I'll keep it pretty brief, right? So obviously, we've all known the A2L is coming for a while. So we decided to partner with a manufacturer who was honestly pretty ready heading into the gates here. So we're currently stocking everything you see on the screen here as far as the Navac product. We do have other brands, but Navac has done a really great job of kind of getting ahead of what it means to be A2L compliant with their pump offering, their recovery machine offering. Again, earlier there was a question regarding the gauges. So you can see here, yes, you are going to need different manifold gauges when you're talking about using A2L refrigerants. But no, we have you covered, right? We do have this as a clickable PDF that we can send out. So when you click on one of the products, it will take you directly to the link on our website to be able to potentially purchase that and look at the pricing. But just know, right, as you go through this, just like Dan says, any feedback that you have, if there's anything that out there that you see that you may want us to carry or consider, please make sure you get in touch with myself or Dan. We're always happy to add to the offering. But as of this point, we're pretty well covered from the A2L offering. Again, you'll see differences in refrigerant leak detectors for external as well. Those items will be coming. But all these products that you see here right now, again, active at Homans in stock. And if you go to the next page, Dan. Just a quick little overview, right? I just thought it was a great chart, direct from Navac, right? Kind of the definition of A2L, right? So again, everything's been assigned a letter and a number and what those mean, right? A for refrigerant is going to represent low toxicity. So there's your A. The 2L is actually a new classification, right? It's a subclass. And again, that's just going to go ahead and determine the flammability of the refrigerant. And again, no, it's been touched on here, right? I think there's been a lot made of the fact that it is, slightly flammable or less flammable. And I know flammable from my previous life on a manufacturing side can be a very scary term for contractors. But just know, right? I mean, it's got to take some serious flammability to really ignite this material. But again, just good to know. And you can move to the next one, Dan. Again, so just know, right? Knowing what A2L is, make sure that when you are looking to buy any future-proof tools, generally speaking, all manufacturers are putting that A2L label on any of the material, whether, again, even going to the Navac site directly, they have an entire section just for A2L. So you're going to see that with pretty much all manufacturers moving forward on the tool side of things. But again, right, what makes an A2L compliant tool at this point? So you're talking sparkless design, brushless motors, soft contact power switches, cover connections for all electrical terminations, and inclusion of a fan. So again, Dan mentions KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? I mean, when you talk about it, these are all items that are going to keep any chance of potential spark or static electricity from coming off of the tool, right? We're just trying to keep it as a safe environment as physically possible. So no, we have you covered. We're ready to rock and roll as far as A2L is concerned. And of course, again, any questions, whether anything supply related or tool related, I'm at your disposal and fully ready to field any questions as they come up.
Thank you, Mr. Peluso.
Great job, Mike. Thank you. So we do have a couple of questions and one comment by our CEO. Both refrigerants are similar in pressure, 410A and 454, but 454 does have slightly low pressure. Just wanted to point that out. And one question that came through, can we transport A2L refrigerant and equipment through tunnels? Ryan, you're on mute if you're answering that.
I was trying to get myself off mute. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Short answer is yes, you can. Long answer, take the A2L transportation, safety and storage classes on My Learning Center, because there's a lot of, it goes into a lot of detail around all that. But yes, you can.
So as a general comment from one of our fellow associates, there's lots of rumors out there that this change is being delayed. Have you heard anything on that? I mean, I personally haven't heard anything except for what you highlighted in one of your earlier slides, as far as, what qualified as a service part and the stickers and all that kind of thing, and in the air handler. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, so Massachusetts is one of the only Massachusetts, I think Nevada, and I want to say Alaska. They have not yet enacted A2L, but they are going to. They were late to the game, getting everything put together as far as getting the everything kind of finalized. But it is the plan. Massachusetts will be going A2L starting January 1, but they're still on the list of non-enacted. So if you see that or it comes up, it's not anything to be too concerned about. But they will be going that route. I haven't heard anything about this being delayed. There's that would be a shock to the industry if this did get delayed, because everybody's playing for this.
Exactly. All right, so for the next two, I'm going to go back to Mr. Peluso. Someone said it sounds like we need a new vacuum pump and recovery machines.
Yeah, so I'll answer these two at once too, right? The second one is, can we use the new tools for R410A as well? So short answer, yes, you do need new vacuum pumps and recovery machine. But the caveat to that is, again, as I mentioned, these vacuum pumps and recovery machines you see here on the screen right now, I'm sorry, that were on previously, we've had those for about the last 2 to 3 years. Yep. So if you have purchased one of these, you're already covered, right? There's no change that needs to be made. And all of these items are in fact backwards compatible, so you can use them with R410A with no issues.
Very good. Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
I don't see any other questions at the moment. Are there any final thoughts from anyone here? Mike, Ryan, Dan?
No, we're going to stick around for I would say 5 more minutes for questions. I just want to thank everyone for the time. This is unbelievable during our busy season to take the time to spend with us, to address the questions, show you where you can access some more frequently asked questions through homans.com, Bryant Resources. A lot of you guys know my hashtag is Together We Win. I do believe that. Without you guys, well, we need each other. So please continue being transparent with myself and everyone on this call, and we will always address everything together. So,
and if any questions do arise, during the course of the day, a week, or whatever, please, feel free to reach out to any one of us or your local territory manager as well, and we will make sure to get those questions answered for you.
Yeah,
and I can't stress enough how much we appreciate you being on here today. It's it's over 80 degrees still today, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, I would echo that. And I think the only thing I would say is if you have a territory manager or work with anybody at Homans, we have a document called Introducing Puron Advance, and it's about a 32-page document, can be emailed to you, goes through all the ins and outs of the refrigerant, the regulation that I was reviewing, also gets into some of the FAQs. This would be a great document that your TM can email you and get in your hands. But I know definitely refer to a lot of the FAQs. 100% try to get those training classes done, because you'll get a lot of information answered there. Again, I just appreciate everybody's time and support with this.
Awesome. So, Mr. Peluso, there was one more question that popped up, the second one. If you could take a look at that.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I don't want to speak too much on Testo, just because I don't want to speak out of school. Not a brand that we currently stock. However, I would assume, based on the fact that it's showing 32 and 454, it is going to go ahead and be able to check out those items, right? Identify those as potential leaks. I'm assuming you're talking about the leak detector when you're talking Testo. As far as what the difference is, really, I think the biggest thing is the brushless motors and the sparkless design, right? You want to make sure, like you said, we're not having any chance of static or electricity while this material is going through these pumps. So I think that's really going to be your your biggest change there. Again, I mean, you know, ultimately, at the end of the day, will your old vacuum pump pull the material out? Absolutely. But
Right.
again, if we're talking about being in a say A2L safe and certified environment, you want to make sure you're using A2L compliant equipment.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Not linked
Okay,
to digital
yep,
manifold
so
pages. Yep.
yeah, the digital manifold gauges. Yes, it should be fine. If that's already on there, it should be absolutely fine. But I just, again, just always to be safe than sorry, I would just get out to whoever you did purchase those from, and just, you may be able to check it right out on their website to make sure that the material, the SDS sheets or tech sheets have the listing of A2L.
But Dan, how soon before that rebate page is corrected?
I hope it's corrected today, to be optimistic, because as people were using it, they saw the value in it. We brought every single state and we addressed every possible rebate of all Bryant systems in one spot. And when you clicked on, like I showed, you can click on Massachusetts, whatever state you pick at the bottom Excel, you can pick every single state from there. And just the ease of use to go right there instead of multiple websites. Oh my God. That Bryant Resources was kind of like my dream. Being working on the counter for so many years and having so many questions, I wish I had one spot to get all those. And that's kind of why it's a living document.
A lot of great information. And those A2L classes are there too. Dan, you just want to pull that up for those that are still on here? Once again, just share that screen one more time. Just to guide people, homans.com, how to navigate to that page. I know Ryan touched on it, that the transportation and safety training would be very important for folks to check out for sure.
Yep. And if you're interested in becoming a dealer, fill this out. It comes to me. I will address it and reach out to you, or your closest TM will be reaching out to you. But to answer your question, Rick, here is where those documents live.
And the one that speaks specifically to the question that came through is the one in the middle right there. Safety, storage, and transportation.
It's always fun to test this with 50 people on the call, but I'm glad it worked.
Boom, there it is. It's a mic drop moment for you, Mike. Dan, good job.
Yes. So, like I said, my learning center is way better because it has voices and tests that go through this.
Yeah, it's more interactive for sure. Yep.
And again, this training will live a little late. If everyone noticed during Ryan talking, it was being recorded. It's because I forgot. So that's going to live here, right in here. So you can reference at a different time. And all the frequently asked questions are going to take over right here. It's going to be 454B is going to take over this section.
So Ryan, there's one question that popped up. I think I might steer this one towards you. If everything has to be a sparkless design, how do we get the DOE to let add-ons for gas and LP furnaces put through? Is this going to be the nail in the coffin for fossil fuel burning equipment?
So sparkless design, I mean, there's still, I mean, there's protections around spark. So even in the outdoor units, we're like anything that potentially could have a spark on the outdoor unit, we can close that. As far as that's, again, if there's a leak in the refrigerant, that's why we're cutting the gas furnace off. So not necessarily, we've got these dissipation boards and sensors in there for these purposes as a safety protocol. So we're not going to necessarily kill gas furnaces, because we're just going to, once that leak is dissipated, we're now going back to normal operation. So not, yeah, I don't think that's anything too concerning. And again, or anything that does have sparks in the system that potentially could cause a spark, we've actually enclosed with protective sleeves, electrical sleeves that go over them on our equipment.
Right.
I think we are good, guys. Stayed a little bit
so.
after 12. everyone grab some lunch, water, obviously. And I
Hydrate.
appreciate everyone on here. Thank you, Rye, Rick, Mike. And we'll see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good day, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.